Well, hey, good morning, everybody. It's JB the Ranch Mechanic here, and today is going to be a video that I was kind of hoping I'd be able to make sooner rather than later, and it looks like I'm going to actually have the opportunity to do this. And what we're looking at here is a 2019 Mahindra Roxor, one of the last ones that actually still looks like a Jeep CJ. The new ones, whenever they come out, I mean, I've seen the renderings, the artist renderings of them, and they just look absolutely atrocious because Fiat Chrysler sued Mahindra for making these things look like a Jeep. Even though Mahindra's been building Jeeps on behalf of Jeep since 1947. But whatever, that's not the point of this video. That's a whole other argument. But what we're going to be doing today is installing some different shocks in this guy because it rides like a brick from the factory. And I have an extended brake line kit, and eventually I do have lift shackles on the way. They're not here yet, but we're going to be lifting the front 1.5 inches via lift shackles, and then the rear is going to go up 1 inch. So it's still going to have quite a bit of rake to it, but we're still running stock size tires on this thing, so we don't want to go, crazy with it. It'll eventually probably get some 32 or 33 inch tall tires on it. Again, this is a work vehicle. It's not a mudder. It's not a rock crawler. I'm using it right now because the battery in my Pioneer is screwed up and it won't start. But this is really the boss's kind of play toy. So essentially, we're just going to be installing some different shocks to make this thing ride a little bit nicer. Now, if you have done any research lately as to installing longer shocks or better shocks on one of these things, you probably are going to run into the same brick wall that I did. I basically had to scour the internet and just search for people who have tried different combinations of shocks on this thing to try to get it to work. And essentially what I've come down to, since the OEM Bilstein shocks are not available right now, and probably won't be for another couple of months, I just dipped in to the Bilstein catalog and ordered some 5125s for this thing out of their custom shock catalog. So essentially what I've done, I got two different types of shocks here. I have some part number 33-185590s for the front. And for the rear, we're going to be running some 33-230443s. Now, both of these shocks are an 8-inch stroke, so the same as the factory shocks, but they're both a little bit taller. And the difference between the two, they're both eye-to-eye configuration, just like the factory shocks here. The difference being is that these shocks, the 185590s, are valved a little bit more aggressively because they're going to go on the front and they have to support the weight of all the engine and all the front end components and everything. Whereas the rears, even though the stroke length is a little bit longer, they're valved quite a bit more lightly, and that will hopefully keep the back end from wandering too much and allow the shock to cycle faster to absorb the washboard and ruts and rapid cycling and stuff that we have to deal with out here. At least that's my working theory and my hope. I hope I've done that correctly. I mean, if there's really issues, I can probably swap the two around and, try to play with it that way. Another thing that I have heard is that we're going to have to run these shocks inverted because of the way the shocks come from the factory. I do believe that these are mounted upside down from the factory. So, Bilstein always says that you should run their shocks with the label facing up. But in all of my research that I've done from 10 years worth of forum posts and probably more than that, these are nitrogen charged gas filled shocks, guys. So I've heard from numerous sources that it really doesn't matter which way you run these things. They're IFP monotube shocks. If you're running a twin tube shock or something like that, running a twin tube shock can be an issue if you run them inverted because your valving is going to be different in those types of shocks. But for a nitrogen charge shock like this, I think that you can run them either way without any ill effects. Again, this is all experimentation at this point, so I have no idea what to expect here. I don't have the lift shackles yet, like I said, but I did order a set of extended brake lines from OTR, so those are here too. I may or may not throw those on today. Like I said, I haven't installed a lift or anything yet. That will hopefully be happening next week. But we'll have to see what the ride height looks like with the new shocks installed, since they are a little bit longer than stock, so it might end up forcing the front end up a little bit. And if that happens, I'll probably end up just swapping the brake lines out, because the last thing we want to do is have somebody rip a brake line off. Then we're in serious trouble. So anyway, this is a fairly straightforward process. Obviously, the shocks mount there and there. It's an eye-to-eye configuration. You just jack up the vehicle, take your wheel and tire off, unbolt the old shock, bolt the new one in, easy peasy. This is not something that I think I need to document for you guys all the way through. it's really easy to figure out. I think I'll bring you back kind of in stages here. I'll film as much as I can, but we're going to start with the front here. We're going to get this thing jacked up, get these wheels and tires off, and then we're going to throw these front shocks on. And yes, the fourth one's sitting over here. I know there's a pile of 3 there. This is just there for filming purposes. But anyway, let me get this this front end up, get these wheels off, and we'll see about how we can orient these things and get the new shocks installed. So bear with me here. Stand by. All right, guys, we're starting with the passenger front corner here. And this really could not be easier to get the factory shocks off. You remove your wheel and tire, jack up and support your vehicle with jack stands. And it's 2 18mm nylock nuts, top and bottom. And they slide right off. You don't have to worry about getting a wrench or anything on the back. The studs are welded to the frame. So this really could not be easier. You pull your 2 18mm nuts off, and guess what? Your shock pulls right off. So here's your factory shock. Let me get out the Bilstein replacement, and I'll show you what that looks like in comparison with this one. All right, guys, so here is the new Bilstein 5100, actually 5125. As compared to the old shock. Now, I think that I'll be able to get away with running these things in the correct orientation. You're supposed to install these things so you can read the label. So with this side up, that's actually going to be well out of the way of the steering knuckle and the brake caliper and everything. So at maximum articulation of the steering, even if it does hit the boot a little bit, it'll just compress the boot. Whereas if you ran them like this, you're going to actually start banging into your shock body. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this thing on real quick. Now, it does say right on the warning thing in the Bilstein insert, the very first point they make says, warning, this shock may not be used as a compression limiter for the suspension. Failure of the shock and or shock mounts may result. So we're going to have to be real careful with these things until those lift shackles come in, because as you can see, compared to, distance, eye-to-eye distance on these things, they are about 2 inches longer in the front than the old shocks. Now, technically they're only supposed to be about an inch and a half longer in the front. And I think with the weight of the vehicle sitting on this thing, it's going to, reduce that travel a little bit. But I still want to get those lift shackles on ASAP just to make sure we don't have any problems with blowing out our brand new shocks. These are $100 a pop, $94 each, which is pretty good, all things considered, because I think the factory length Bilstein option that you can order from Mahindra, if they ever show back up again, I think those are like 500 and something bucks for the set. So this is a much cheaper alternative, and you're getting extended travel compared to the stock length Bilstein shocks that you can get from Mahindra. So anyway, I'm going to throw one of these on real quick, and I'll bring you back when that's done, and we'll look at it once it's installed. All right, guys, we got this first one installed. Easy peasy. It is an extremely tight fit because the Bilsteins come with new rubber bushings inside the shock mounts here. So what I did, I took some PB Blaster and put some on the inside of the rubber bushing as well as the stud coming off of the frame, and that allowed me to kind of get them on. And as you can see, we have the steering maxed out to the right here, and it is very, very close, but there is clearance. Now, that is not to say there's going to be perfect clearance when this thing is, under full articulation. We don't flex this thing out. Like I said, it's not a rock crawler or anything, but as long as you're not, going like the Baja 500, through a whole bunch of whoops and turns and ruts and everything with this thing, the steering is, maxed out one way or the other. I think we're going to be okay with that. So I'm not sure if I'm going to bother installing the extended brake lines yet. I think I'm going to get the other one installed and get the wheels back on the front and just kind of look at this thing. I mean, this is about as far down as this axle can droop. It's being supported by the frame here, so the axle's dropped all the way down. And I think that this is going to be okay until we get the lift shackles installed. So for now, like I said, I'm just going to go install the other Bilstein on the other side. Then we'll slap the front tires back on and kind of see if we get any ride height increase just from the better shocks. I'm just excited to go drive this thing as soon as the shocks are on, because anything's got to be better than these things from the factory. I don't even know who makes them. Is there a tag on it? No, it's all faded. But, oh, they're Mahindra branded shocks. Made by Gabriel. Made in India. So yeah, generic OEM shocks. Not valved for this kind of terrain, that's for sure. So I'm hoping that the valving that I chose for these shocks is going to be a market improvement, but we'll see. So anyway, move on to the other side here, get that done, slap the wheels and tires back on, then I'll bring you back and we'll have a look at it and see if there's any difference in the ride height. All right, one final note on the passenger side here. I got the wheel and tire back on and it's dropped down. And that banjo bolt for the brake line is quite a bit closer to the boot now. So there is a chance that that will rub on the boot, but there is no contact with the actual shock body or the shaft or anything. So if we end up wearing through a boot, that's not a big deal. We can deal with that if and when it happens. I'm not worried about that at all. This is at full lock with the steering turned all the way to the right. Turned all the way to the left, it'll be wide open. There's nothing that could possibly hit it. So the passenger side looks good. Like I said, I'm gonna go do the same thing over on the driver's side, and we'll double check that. If there's any differences or if it looks worse on that side compared to this one, I'll definitely let you know. And we'll just kind of have a look at it after everything's finished. Okay guys, almost done here. I've got all but one shock left. I got the, you can probably see it through there. I got the driver's side rear on over there. And I just want to do a quick comparison of the rear shocks. These are slightly longer than the ones I got for the front, but they're valved really not super lightly, but much lighter than, you know, a traditional regular nitrogen charged shock. But the rebound is very, very fast. Let me try it this way. So watch the rebound here. Very fast. Very fast. Very quick response. Whereas the factory Gabriel shocks, yeah, they don't rebound at all. These are twin tube oil filled shocks. I don't think they're gas charged or anything. So again, they're just there to kind of absorb bounces, and the suspension actually pulls them back open again. These do not rebound on their own, which is why the ride quality is so crappy from the factory. They don't have a gas charged shock on here. So I'm really hoping that these 5125s are going to make a huge difference in the ride. So for the rear, exact same setup as the front, just inboard instead of outboard. So you have two 18mm bolts down there. Again, studs welded to the frame. The old shocks pull right off, new ones go right on. I'm gonna zap these on real quick, and then we're gonna go for a test drive, and we're gonna see how much of a ride improvement we get. Okay guys, here they are all installed. We got the Bilstein 5125s installed front and rear. No real ride height difference, which is good. I did not want to stress those brake lines until we have those lift shackles installed, so that's exactly what I wanted. But we're gonna go take this thing for a test drive now and kind of see what kind of ride improvement we're gonna get. I'm guessing it's gonna be pretty substantial, just based on the fact that the factory shocks don't really have any rebound to them at all. They're not capable of soaking up any kind of terrain. So let's go take this thing for a spin. We're gonna go hit some washboards, some G-outs, some ruts, and we're gonna see what we got. So I'll bring you along for the ride here. I'm gonna just get this thing pulled out of the shop and we'll get going. Okay guys, I just drove this thing about 10 miles on our dirt roads, which are very washboarded, and now I'm back here at one of our wells. Just shut this guy down, shut this pivot and well down, and this is little very rough service road right here that, you know, we've graded, but we graze cattle on this pivot, and when the ground gets wet, the cattle just tear it up. And driving this thing back here before, I mean, your top speed was maybe 4 or 5 miles an hour because the suspension was so rough that would actually cause the wheels to hop, and it would make the entire Roxor just shake and slam into the ground. And when I say it's a night and day difference with these 5125 shocks, I am not kidding. I have never been more impressed by the difference that a set of shocks make and the overall stability, handling, and suspension feel of one of these vehicles. I mean, it's just eating this stuff up. Now, you still feel it. This is a very heavy little rig. I mean, it's, you know, over 3,000 pounds. But I'm going 20 miles an hour right now. And I was talking to you without really even my voice breaking that much from the bumps. It's astounding how much of a difference that those shocks have made. So I'm just gonna film for a second here. I'm gonna have to pause at this gate because I'm gonna have to get out and close this gate because there's the neighbor's cows running all over the place back here. But then we're gonna bomb back up this road here, back toward the ranch, and I'll let you see what it's like on some rough, higher speed roads. But we'll be going probably 50 miles an hour. So give me a second to close this gate. All right, we're back, here we go. You know, before trying to drive this thing, after about 10 minutes, my back would actually start hurting. And these new shocks soak up the bumps so much better that it's actually almost a joy to drive this thing now. I mean, I really am impressed, guys. It's such a huge difference. I really wasn't expecting it to make that much of a difference, but it really does. It's incredible. We're going 50 miles an hour right now, and this thing is planted, and it's It's soaking up. I mean, you can still feel a little bit of the washboard. This isn't a particularly bad stretch of road, but these new shocks are absolutely 100 times better than the Gabriels that I just pulled off. Absolutely incredible. There's a couple of real big bumps right here. Soak those right up too. I mean, you definitely feel bumps, obviously. Like I said, this is an extraordinarily heavy little rig. But man, going over something that big that fast with the old shocks, holy cow, I would have launched my head through the ceiling. And we were going probably 10 miles an hour or so over them. So anyway, I got a few more things to do here, and then I'll bring you back for a final recap. All right, guys. I've been actually putzing around in this thing for like 4 hours now. It's well after my work time for the day. And today is Saturday, August 7th. So I'm gonna try to get this video edited and posted today. That's how excited I am about these shocks and how much better they are over the stock ones. I'm actually probably a good 7 or 8 miles away from the ranch. You might be able to kind of see there. Yeah, see the grove of trees down there? That's kind of where my house is. That's the actual ranch compound where all of our houses are. But anyway, I'm way up here in the hills. I've been driving I've actually been driving for about 10 miles over some washboard and some really crazy bad roads. And let me spin the camera around here and I'll give you my final thoughts here. So let me just break it down this way for you guys. This is a heavy leaf sprung vehicle with solid front and rear axles. Okay, you got 4 leaf springs, you got 2 solid axles. It's never going to be a pre-runner or a trophy truck. All right, you have to temper your expectations when you're dealing with a suspension setup like this. It's old school tech. These have been around since the 40s, all right? Not this particular vehicle, but it's based on a vehicle that's been around since the 40s. But I am absolutely 100% confident in saying that these Bilstein 5125s that I put on this thing today are 150% better than the Gabriels that came on it from the factory. The ride quality improvement is astounding. You're still going to feel large bumps. You're still going to feel washboard. It's not a miracle in a box here, guys. So like I said, you got to temper your expectations because you're dealing with a lot of weight, and unless you want to spend thousands of dollars on a custom shock setup from like Icon or, you know, King or Radflow or something like that, if you can even fit them on here, you know, going to like a remote reservoir style shock, you're still limited by your leaf springs here. I mean, they're a rough riding set of leaf springs. Now, there are aftermarket modifications you can do. You can buy aftermarket leaf spring packs and stuff that are a little bit more progressively rated, so they soak up stuff a little bit better. But you're looking at $600 or $700 for that. You know, these shocks are $94 a pop. I got them from shocksurplus.com. I ordered them a couple days ago. I had them the next day with free shipping. That was free ground shipping. I got lucky. They happen to have a warehouse over in Salt Lake. That's where they came from. I had the shocks in my hand. I ordered them, I think, Monday afternoon. I had them in my hand Tuesday. That was pretty freaking good. So, big shout out to those guys. I'm not sponsored by anybody, like I always say, but, you know, credit where credit's due. They did a great job. I mean, for free shipping, I mean, that's pretty remarkable that they got them to me so quickly. So thank you guys. I appreciate that. I'll put the part numbers and everything for these particular shocks in the description below. If you guys are interested, I highly recommend you pick some of these up. Again, these are not OEM approved by Mahindra or whatever. These are shocks that I picked based on my research and the kind of valving I thought I would need for this terrain out here in the environment that I operate in. I highly suggest that you go to Bilstein's website and look at their 5125 catalog and pick a shock that's going to work for you in the environment that you operate your vehicle in. These work great for me. They might not work as well for you. You know, you might want something that's valved quite a bit heavier for your application. you might want something valved a lot lighter because you want to go faster and you don't, you're going to take a bunch of weight away from your vehicle, whatever. Point is, the options are out there. They have all kinds of different options. And if you wanted to step up to like a 5125 remote reservoir or even like a 5160, I think they have a couple of options in that catalog for those as well. So if you want to try to stuff a remote reservoir in the rear or even in the front, you can probably do it based on what Bilstein has available. So lots of great options out there. I highly recommend that you guys check it out. The stock shocks that come on these things are just, they're garbage. They really are. I'm amazed that Mahindra even chose a non-rebounding oil-filled shock for something this heavy. It really doesn't make any sense to me. It's probably more of an economy thing than anything else. They were looking to save money. I don't blame them. Mass-producing stuff ain't easy. But anyway, I'm going to quit rambling now. It's Saturday afternoon. I want to go enjoy this thing. I want to spend some time with my family, so I hope that this information was helpful for you guys. It's a super easy upgrade, really quick to do, and it's a night and day difference in the improvement in the ride quality. I can't stress that enough. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave me a comment. I'll do my best to get back to you. If you like this kind of content, you want to see more of it, click that like button. Let me know that you like watching my videos and subscribe to the channel. And we'll have a lot more stuff like this coming. I got a couple more videos in the works right now about both my 2018 Silverado, which I still have not repaired from the deer damage. Finally got all the parts for that. More on that here coming in the next couple of weeks. And a 2005 Suburban that I just spent the last 2 or 3 days on, completely going through the front suspension, replacing ball joints and shocks and tie rod ends and all kinds of stuff. So those videos will be coming out here very soon. But this one, I actually just started filming today, and I want to get it out today. That's how excited I am about this upgrade. So, again, thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. Have an awesome weekend. Be safe. Have fun. We'll catch you on the next one. See ya.